Oh, it's been so long. I can't wait to hear it. Hit us.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of.
It's been a while, but we still can't stop snapping. Ooh, the much belated episode. Brad, there are a lot of cards that have released, a lot of predictions we threw out when we were last out there. Man, so much has changed since we saw each other, which is crazy. Like, Snap actually hit turbo boost. We have alliances, we have leagues, we have Deadpool's Diner, and free cards. It's all crazy. What is your favorite new feature?
Favorite new feature. So alliances are cool. I
Yep.
wish there was like more to do
Very
with
bare
them.
bones.
Yeah, it's just like the bounties are fun or whatever, but it's like
They could also be
I haven't hit
brutal at
infinite yet.
times.
Right. I haven't hit infinite yet, so I would like to not throw games by playing Forge and Vulture in my deck. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
But yeah, those are cool. Otherwise, like Devil's Diner is really cool. I will just say I do not consider any of these to really count as new game modes. I'm
No.
still waiting on my
Oh,
new
yep.
game modes.
Uh-huh.
We haven't gotten those yet. That'd be cool if we could get those. But I
Right.
mean, otherwise, like, look, they're new features. They're cool. Diner was awesome. I hope they do those more. Any way to grind additional, forms of the game to get free stuff, especially free cards and ones that are as powerful as Cassandra Nova, who
Yeah.
literally just got nerfed on top of that. Yeah, it's looking bright. I would say.
100%. My favorite has to be the alliances. And if you guys are out there are looking for an alliance that's active, has open spots, Team Teddy has, we have a whole set of alliances with some open spaces. So join up on the Discord and we'd love to have you sign up for Team Teddy in the flesh. Shoo, you're going to have to remind me, Brad, because it has been a few weeks. What were we talking about on the last CSS episode?
Right. So we were talking about we were doing like a preview episode of like looking ahead to the next month, and we were saying, "Hey, Marvel Snap, you should not release cards in these current states." And the cover of that thumbnail was Marvel Boy himself.
Oh,
And
yes.
Teddy, I'd like to take this moment for you and I to both just give us a little pat on the back for what we called as saying he could not release in the state he was in because he was a 3/2 that gave +2 to everything. We were one drops, all that good stuff. So he released, as you all know, giving +1, and that would have been crazy if he did +2. So I think we were correct in that regard.
We definitely were, and I'm still happy with where he landed. He doesn't seem like the most impactful card right now, but is a mainstay in a zoo deck that is very meta relevant. So very happy actually where he landed. I'm not really calling for a buff or a nerf to this guy, which makes me very happy indeed with that release, that they caught that before, like, if he had the +2 and it was just terrorizing the meta. Oh my gosh. Did we have any other hot takes to come back and dwell on?
I think I hit the nail on the head calling Ursham during his release many, many moons ago. If you all remember, I gave the prediction while everyone during his pre-spoiler season or whatever you want to call it, right before he came out, everyone's like, this is a meme card. He looks fun. But that's really it. And I was over here saying he's going to be similar to Hela in a way in terms of not very good win rate, around 52, 53, maybe 54%. But his cube rate, I guarantee you, is going to be very, very good because the swinginess of the nature of that deck with like Quinjet and stuff like that. And as you come to see with cards like Loki and his change, that did come to fruition and also gave him a little bit of a nerf to go to 15 cards shuffled in. And right before that 15 card update for his nerf, Teddy, his stats were very much so what I just said. A low win rate around 52, 53%, and a plus or 0.46, 0.5, 0.6 in some of the different versions of the decks with the cube rate. So again, hot take on my end. I called that again, and of course, all the people that were saying he's a meme card, a week or two after his release, were all screaming from the hilltops, "He's broken. He's overpowered. You must nerf him." I just wish you guys were more consistent. Say it with your whole chest, okay? Come on, put your back into your predictions. Let's do this.
I mean, here's the thing: is he was one of those that was so hard to predict because we had never seen anything like that, and so it was just this real guessing, going with your gut kind of
I'm
nature
just
on the
built
impact of those
different,
12
Teddy.
cards. Yeah, getting shuffled in. But the Haikyuu game, I mean, when you have the option to just have randomly generated the perfect card that the opponent will never guess, that's the cube stealer for sure. And then Loki, with this rework, gave him that like brute force capacity to still like go straight through opponents. It's really solid, and frankly, it's still really solid even at the 15. I think
Did you
Arsham
have
is doing
any
fine.
do you have any hot takes that you made or predictions that you feel proud of during our 2 month hiatus?
Let's see. I definitely went. I kind of picked up from Drewberry after Drewberry retired by doing the buyer's guide, the snapper
Mm.
pass. Um, and I definitely gave Cass, Copycat, and Gwenpool all pretty high marks, and they've all panned out, I think, pretty well. Especially with Cass recently getting a nerf. I think Copycat certainly justifies one as well.
Yep.
Gwenpool sitting happy, which I love to see a release like that her decks have continued to kind of refine. She wasn't too overtuned, but is in a happy spot in the meta. I've been pretty happy with a lot of these releases so far, actually.
Yeah. I think we might have overestimated Gwenpool a little bit when we were talking about her before. The randomness of her and the fact that like you can pick the same card all 3 times is I think what
Yeah.
reels her back.
Yes. When
When
she
I was
picks
a
the one card you're not playing, and you're like, I don't want to
right
do this, Shang, or
when
whatever,
I was thinking before, I thought you couldn't repeat when we first saw her effect. I thought it would
Oh,
just be like
interesting.
it happens like all at once. For example, like you just hit 3 cards.
Yeah,
Um, So that was my thinking with her. That's why I had her a lot more highly rated. But I think
sure.
she's appropriate as a card. She's a solid stat line of 4/6, which is the Iron Lance stat line, and she just does things. And when she pays out, or like I like her in discard, for example, hitting Swarm. Um, hitting any of your enablers is nice. I will say to just throw in these quick ones real quick to give myself some kudos. I'm going to say I called Makari and Ajax. I said both of these were mediocre cards at best. Makari would be your first card cut out of Surfer lists. She mostly is, except for a deck you were telling me about not too long ago, the odd card Surfer list.
Yeah, do we have a real name for that one? It's the one with Moon
Uh,
Knight where you play all odd powered or all odd costing cards, and then you have the Moon Knight like hand attack suite alongside Proxima Midnight, which is a really cool idea. I love the deck building challenge there. But yeah, that's like the only spot that I'm seeing Makari at the moment. And even then, she's like iffy there.
right.
Yeah.
And then I think Ajax is mostly poor.
That's
Uh,
interesting because Ajax has a meta relevant deck at the moment. You're not a fan of him being in the Affliction deck?
Correct. I think Affliction decks
Ooh.
overall, when trying to actually go with that playstyle, are better off not playing Ajax entirely. You're
Okay.
better off actually leveraging Luke Cage and trying to attack it in different ways and go tall in different ways. You have plenty of tools available that aren't named Ajax that can go pretty tall. I mean, even something like Cold Obsidian, because these decks like to play Debris, for example, to get those
Sure. Yeah,
afflictions to
yeah.
rocks. Uh, that's a great pick as well. And it's not like Ajax is that often really big because unless you're waiting to afflict on the very last turn, which I know that's often what people like
I
to
think
do.
that's the playstyle, and so that's part of it is
Right.
they're married to Magic to have a full board on either side, and the marriage to Magic does make it more complex and more challenging to pull off.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And like, I just think there are better cards. One thing we were talking about before is I think that Gilgamesh in that 5-drop slot in a zoo deck, that idea is just better executed through that deck for what the Ajax deck is trying to do. You know?
Yeah, it's doing a very similar thing where it goes wide mass buffs versus mass affliction, and then
Mm-hmm.
stack it on Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh's stats are a little better. He's obviously not able to key off of buffs on the opponent's side, so Ajax can scale even more. But I mean, either way, you have a giant tall guy in one lane while you've gone wide in the others.
One thing I want to
And
ask you real quick.
Zoo is really
Um,
good right now.
Zoo is really good right now. Let me ask you this: as I'm
Okay.
looking through the releases of all these cards and like just the history of like the last year of Snap,
Yep.
um, Are there any cards that you can look back on that you just sit there and go, damn, they did them dirty. Like they made some kind of change with something, and whether it's a nerf or they buff something else or nerf something else, and you just don't see the card anymore, and it kind of makes you sad, or you wish it had more play to it, or it's underrated. Because like I'm looking at Cannonball right now, and I'm a little
Yeah.
bummed out looking at him.
I'm okay with him where he's at. He was too much at the time. It was kind of the double whammy on hitting. I mean, the Pro X change. That's the one that got done dirty. That alteration to Pro X, but there's just too much around him because they cut the Renslayer synergy and they cut allowing cards to move in is insane. Like it just breaks down so much of his lockdown potential.
Right.
Celine is the one that I always love the idea, but have never been able to like get to pop off.
Oh boy, do I have a deck for you.
Oh yeah.
So I've been playing. So I made it. So we were talking earlier before stream, or before recording, that some decks I was using in my climb.
Yeah.
All the ones I was naming have been for my 90s climb.
Okay.
My 73 293 climb was with the deck that I built. I just named it green and purple. It is a combination of like mill. So
Yep.
you have Yondu, you have Cable, you have Baron Zemo. Then you have Celine and Goblins. You have the new
Okay.
Doc Ock.
Well, I was
because-
gonna call him out as a great rework recently.
Right. Because now the Doc Ock pulls the card most likely you afflicted with Celine's ability and can disrupt him in that sense.
Yep.
Also, I just have Loki in there as well.
Why not?
because
You
it's
just
a
run new
good
Loki.
pivot.
You just run new Loki. You do.
And that deck got that I flew through the 70s to the 90s. It's just with that type of deck, I don't have the patience in the 90s to start really efficiently snapping and retreating to my utmost best ability. Typically, the last few seasons, I switched to like either Galactus or something along those lines, where the line you have of snapping versus retreating is very crystal clear.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I just want to make it easier on myself. Be like, okay, I'm in the 90s. I'm just going to get these 2 to 4 cubes at a time, and I will hit infinite, and it's fine. Rather than try to sweat it out and be like, okay, what if they have this? What if they have this? What if they have this? I just get to go, my Galactus didn't do it. Bye-bye. And then I'm out. And
Peace.
It's great.
I'll see you next time. Yeah.
Yep.
Is there a world where that affliction kind of mill deck wants to use the new Death Strike?
So I was considering it. I love the new Death Strike too, man. Like going back to a 5/7. And I thought she was still pretty solid at a 5/6. I had been running last season the that Pixie Annihilus deck from seasons ago. I was like, let's fire it up again, see if it's still good. It's still pretty decent. I'm not gonna lie.
Right.
So, and I'm sure those can have some tweaks and stuff like that. But yeah, I and even like Affliction or like Mill or even like Celine stuff of like junk, gaining the tool of Hawkeye Kate Bishop as well, being
Sure.
like a flex spot now in that 2-drop, because really the 2-drop slot in those decks have always been like, what am I doing? Like we got White Widow and that's great, but besides her, you're like, okay, do I run like a Jeff or like just like another 1 or 2 2-drops that are just good, and then do that are not very good late game draws? Admittedly, she's not either, but hey, she gives you really good early game flexibility.
Yeah, she gives you a very dynamic early game, and on the 50% chance that you're popping that Toxic Arrow, man,
Yep.
I just want to see the other arrows get moved to like being as good as Toxic Arrow.
See, I have an easy buff for you. So the one that's the Pym arrow, and then the one that's the basic arrow, which are just Ant-Man and Hawkeye.
Yep.
Bring them up to the current versions of the cards they're based off of. They're based on the old versions.
Yeah, you're still paying the energy to be able to play them, and you have the uncertainty that you don't know what you're getting when you play Kate. So why not? What I do love,
give me a 1/5 and a 1/5, easy.
What makes me really like Kate right now is that it's bringing Collector back. Like I didn't think that was ever going to happen, but especially because of the nuance right now, which I don't know if it's intended, but Loki will pop Collector +1. And so if you're running like Coulson, Kate, Loki, You
Oh
can have
wait,
a
Loki.
very solid
Loki
collector.
does.
Loki gives +1. The first draw is not from your deck, and then all the
Really?
other ones are. So yes, if you have collector and you play Loki, collector will go up by that 1 on the first draw.
Can you explain to me how it's not from your deck type?
At the time of him, the nuance of him drawing that card and then like the deck being formed and collector realizing that is something is desynced.
I feel like that's not intended.
No, it's definitely not, but it works right now, and
Okay,
it
interesting.
makes collector like a pretty reliable, bigger than usual 2 cost, and especially when so many of these decks that you're playing against run a little bit of card generation as well that you might pull off of the Loki, and you're running Cable in there as well. Like the collector is just consistent.
Hmm. Have you tried anything with like Devil Dino, like just straight up like classic shield stuff shenanigans with it
I
with
have
the
not
idol?
brought Devil Dino back yet. Yeah, not yet. I'll run Mockingbird for instead right now.
Man, but imagine the turn 6 where you can play both Devil Dino and Mockingbird, or you play Devil Dino
Ooh.
on 5, play Mockingbird on 6 plus card generation.
Yep.
With collector down, you know.
Yep. I feel
I
like
don't know.
maybe on the cards
That'd
that
be
were done
something.
dirty, like War Machine has never found his stride. I know he got the recent little love tap up to 7, but it's just not
I'm
flowing
telling you,
right
people
now.
are just underexploring him. And I will pound the table with my Hellfire list that we've talked about numerous times. It is a good list, and the idea of using War Machine as like a combo piece as opposed to being a and then sometimes occasionally being that catch all or catch 21 card, right? Um, is the way to go. But I don't mean combo piece in the sense of like I'm gonna storm and then turn 4 after storming play play him to just re-enter the storm lane, which is fine.
Yep.
It's cute. Or like
Right.
to do like the storm and then like lead. Actually, it is fun to do that. So you go storm on 3, you go him on 4, and then you go legion onto the storm lane
Yeah.
and or legion, and that's fun. That you'll get some fun wins out of that.
Shut him up.
But that combo with Infinite and like turn 7 being able to go like Infinite plus Ebony Maw or Infinite plus Stature and stuff like that. It's still pretty solid. So War Machine, I think, is a solid card that people are just like thinking too hard on how to use them when it's just use the good combos.
Right. The problem is like, do you have any combos if you don't hit War Machine on curve, or like at the point that you need him? So it's like, that's a tough thing.
Yeah, I mean that's why you have to have like that's why there's the Black Bolt Stature idea in my list. That's why there's the move package of like Spider-Man, Nightcrawler, or something like that, and with Miles Morales as well to get that going. Um,
Yeah.
that way, if you need to play Ebony Maw early for whatever reason, you can still have ways to get into that lane. So like, yeah, I think it's not going to be like the top of the meta, but it's a serviceable list that I'm sure if like more eyes were on it, kind of thing, that like the correct card disparity would be found, like which one,
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
what's a cut, what's a find. Because we talked about this before. I do think with cards like War Machine, and I'll shout out what's her name, Supergiant as another one. Like these are cards that are just like the simple idea is very straightforward as face value. Like Supergiant is like cool. This is like my Invisible Woman V2 for my Hela deck that I want to hide this combo, or my Patriot deck, right?
Yep. Yep.
But finding out those little nuances of how to use her, like when we talked about months ago, my priority deck where I was doing
Right.
Daredevil stuff with Supergiant and being able to see what your opponent's hiding on their end and using that leverage against them, and then Eliath as well. Like they're just finding those like little things, and that's full circle is my biggest gripe with the fact that we don't have enough game modes besides
Yeah.
ranked, even just an unranked, because Proving Grounds no longer really fits that unranked mold that people thought it might be.
Right.
People use that to farm, and they instantly retreat, so you don't really get actual good game data out of it. I don't think people really try all that much in those. They just go like just throw out cards like if I win, I win to get my
Yeah.
silver ticket, or just farm XP for season pass.
Or they just farm bounties now. Like that's your
Exactly.
spot to throw for bounties. Or if you happen to draw the short straw in your alliance, you're like, all right, I need to clear all the win 8 cubers.
Yep.
Go into proving grounds, baby.
Exactly. So by not having these other modes, like even something as simple as just a way to not play ranked,
Yeah.
people are not willing. The average person, um, they are not willing to put in the time and effort to really find those niche intricacies of play patterns and card combinations with cards like Supergiant or War Machine. Because why sacrifice your rank to do so? And especially now with even post infinite being a thing that people like to grind towards, why sacrifice my post infinite rank and throw
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that to,
Yeah,
to
now that you
work
have
on?
now that you have the post infinite leaderboard, like before that was there, I would just sit as soon as I got the infinite and mess around with whatever, and I didn't care what really happened. But now that I can
Yeah.
be consistently like top 200 in the world, I literally can't. People will be in my chat and be like, "Oh, you should try this." I'm like, it doesn't work at the very top of the meta, my man. I'm playing the top 2% of decks against the top 0.1% of players. They will crush me, even though it sounds very funny and I would love to, but like it's sacrificing too much for me to be able to claw my way back. I would love you've sparked my imagination. You remember that Gwent had like a faction based leaderboard?
Mhm.
I would love it if in Snap for like leagues or like they implemented in some way a world where like you had to build with containing a certain card in your deck and you got a side ranking for how well you did out of all players using that constraint. Maybe throw out a couple every
This is
season,
what, yeah,
and then
this
they
is
could
what
have
mastery could have been.
yeah, exactly. Then they could get data on these cards that like they're curious if they want to change, but right now the best players aren't looking at them, so you don't get refinement in what those decks could be.
Yeah. There's no incentive to look at them. There's no incentive to go outside the box. It's just, can I identify the very obvious, broken, or at least very strong and consistent decks or consistent
Yeah.
cards to build around
Yeah.
versus, because I mean, like the cards we're describing, being War Machine and Supergiant, are ones that have very vast, intricate play lines with so many different possible combinations of like cards and things like that.
Right.
Especially if we get like War Machine's case, if we get more cards like Infinite, Giganto that have like how you can play them restrictions, as
Yes.
well as locations of the same variety, Crimson Cosmos, not Death Domain, I guess, but like Sanctum Sanctorum, more
Yeah.
locations of that variety, or what's the pet one? Pet Island, Pets, whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Where like you have to play
Yeah.
cards that turn there,
Yeah, yeah. I'm
like stuff
actually
like that.
forgetting what that one's called, but yeah, there's a lot of locations that limit you where then War Machine is a trump card.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's just it's the my biggest gripe and unfortunate thing with this game. Second to sometimes the scratching. Second to sometimes the what's it called? The singleton aspect of the game sometimes bums me out. It's like I lose exactly to this card fighting,
Yeah. And of
and
course they run it.
yeah, right.
Not only did they
And
run it,
not
they
only do they
drew it.
run it, they have it. Or
Yeah.
worse, they got it generated by Arishem. Stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that one can be brutal. You're like, oh yeah, Arisham would have given you this. So I
Yeah.
snapped and then I lost, and then they emote on me, and I mute them forever. And you know, nobody's having a really good time there.
Before we move on to the next thing, while we're on the idea of like underlooked cards or whatever, you think Havoc can go to +5?
Oh. Can he go to +5? No, maybe.
I see.
It's Havoc is so weird.
That's
It's so weird. I just don't like him very much. So I guess I haven't thought too much about what he could be. Well, what I would love for him to actually be is get the activate keyword. Once they throw us the activate keyword, if I could play Havoc and then choose every turn to tap on whether or not he will activate, then call me, right? How do you like that? So we have on the one hand on the scales of justice +5, so just more brute power, or finesse. Which do you pick?
The finesse would make it more interesting. I'll give you
Yeah.
that, and would give more play potential or like skill ceiling potential, right?
Right.
Where that's something that people would like, I guess, yearn for or like want. Whereas like just giving raw power is boring, but it's the most easy way to identify. Okay, is he good now? Does this scaling by 5 for a couple turns? Because I mean, just having him out for 3 turns if you play him like turn 3 or like turn 4 in a Magic game,
Right.
that
Well, no, it'd just be
lets
turn 4
you.
because it's at the end, so it's 4, 5, and 6.
Oh yeah, you're right. Like just playing on turn 4 and then going from 12 to 15 now
Yep.
is quite the swing.
But then you are actually sacrificing 6 energy to, and you've paid 2, so you paid 8 energy for 15 power. Like that's what's tough about him, if you play
Right,
him early.
that's the downside. Yeah.
Yep. But in a
He's
position where you're
interesting
locking
card.
lanes down, and you had an advantage in the other lane, and you don't actually need that much energy to win, and then he just goes tall, like it could happen.
That's why I liked him in like the Ravona Professor X deck before I was trying, where it's like, cool, he's a 1/0 now.
Yep.
That I can on turn 5 do go Professor X into him.
And I know I'm going to get a lot more power banked in there.
Right.
Yeah.
But now with the way Professor X is like, I don't know, like I haven't really given him a fair shake since his nerf. I feel like I should, because I do have doubts on if that nerf is as detrimental to his play and his win rate potential.
You're
As
going to
maybe
have
we're
to do
giving
it
it.
now, because as soon as the move season kicks off, he's seeing nothing. No play.
Yeah, that's the downside. But like what cards that are move cards should we really worry about when it comes to our boy here? Because
Any
honestly,
of them. I mean,
it's
if a vulture gets pushed in there off of the Madam Web, like at the late game, like you're going to lose.
oh, I mean, yeah, once that season rolls around, we cry. We cry.
In fact, I think
we
move
weep.
decks might be incorporating them, like Professor X themselves. Like a
I
move
agree.
deck suddenly gets the freedom. Like they could pop off Ebony Maw, Storm, Pro X, any of these with their little core of scalers, and then they can duck under these protection zones whenever they want.
No Shang-Chi, no Shadow King can get in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's. I remember the first thing I did with Professor X after that nerf was I tried him in a move deck, and I found it to be decent, but we're not quite there yet with the move stuff. This was also
Right.
before the Hercules buff, I think.
Yeah.
So
Herc
there's
is
that
looking
aspect
a little
too.
better.
Still not played.
Okay, so here's no, but I think it should be. Like move is closer than we give it credit for. I have off of the bounties, which is interesting because it's made me play with some decks that I definitely otherwise would never have tried. And, if I pick up that suite of 3 move bounties, I dropped into, I already had a gold conquest started, and I was like, oh, I'm going to run move and gold. Here we go. I won an infinite ticket. I played the meta nonsense decks, and, you probably have to say I did get good draws and whatnot.
But I mean, that happens. Any deck is going to win when you get good draws. So let's not discount yourself there.
I scraped it out, and so it shows that it can be able to perform with the best of them. It just needs that more consistency to really hit, and it's about to get more consistency. So, and I have Herc in mine in my move deck that was winning. I like it a lot.
I mean, all we wanted from Hercules when he first revealed or was released, we kept saying if he was a 3 cost, I think he'd be a much different story for move. And I agree. Yeah.
Yep. And I got that Spotlight Cash Hercules. Ooh, juicy. It's good stuff.
All right, today. So now, since we've been talking about cards of previous changes, nerfs, buffs, and things like that, which we'll touch on in a moment, our favorites of recent memory during our hiatus. Let's talk about the cards that we didn't get to talk about real quick during the time we were gone. And we already touched on Arishem and stuff like that, and his nerf has changed. Yep. But really, we didn't get a chance to really talk about the following: Hydra Bob, Gwenpool, Ajax, which I kind of did a little bit, Cassandra Nova, Copycat, Marvel Boy, and of course Kate Bishop, and then now Wiccan. Let's rapid fire these real quick and just give a star rating to these cards that, like, hey, if you didn't pick these up, maybe this is why you don't pick it up or why you do pick it up. And let's start with Hydra Bob. Let's go in order from front to back here.
Well, thank Hydra for his buff. I'm gonna go 3 stars.
Yeah, I think that's actually appropriate. Now, 1-4, I thought he was a 1 star.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
crazy how much one power changes things when it comes to the cards in this game. But I mean, we've seen that so many times.
right,
But yeah, 1-5, C5 is loving him in that sense. The snap move thing isn't as crazy as you think. Yes, you might lose a game here and there because of it, but now he's a 1-5, you're much less likely to do so. And you kind of
right.
treat him the same way as Martyr, where it's like if you put yourself in a position in your board state to make it so that when he moves, or you don't give him a place to move to, you can still win.
Exactly. Having that raw power on the last turn also is like always appreciated when you have another core 5 cost.
Yep. All right, let's move on to Gwenpool.
I love her. I think that she's going to keep on getting refined. I'm probably going. Am I doing this? Going full 4 stars on Gwenpool here?
See, I thought you were going to say I'm going to go full 5 stars, which I would be like, yeah,
No,
I think
no.
four is appropriate. I will agree with 4. I may even go 3.5.
Okay.
I think, again, like I alluded to earlier, I think we overestimated her a teeny bit on her raw power. I think she's still very good, but that randomness of like, dude, I hit in my hand of 4 cards, I somehow hit the 2 or 1 cards I do not want to play multiple times.
Yeah.
That does feel pretty bad, but at the very least, she's on a good 4/6 body, and I think I'm gonna roll with 3.5 simply because she would have been 4 if the best deck she goes in was not Surfer, because she just
Okay.
happens to work so damn well in that
Yeah.
curve of going 3 drop on 3.
Just everything they do.
Yeah, like you go Nova on 1, Forge on 2, 3 drop on 3 like Brood or something like that. Or if you miss the Brood, you just do another 3 drop like what's his name, Shaw, and then you go into Gwenpool on 4 because they've never had a good 4 drop to play in Surfer. Because why would you? Because you want 3 cost cards. You hit a bunch of cards in your hand. You play Sarah now, who if she's hit from Gwenpool on for 5, like then like you're pretty happy because normally you're looking at a potential priority swing with Sarah coming down. But now you may, in certain instances, want to gain priority, so you can go ahead and do that. So now, by getting her a little bit of a buff, and then just do
Right.
the Surfer thing on 6. Like, she's really good in Surfer, and that makes me unfathomably upset.
We'll see if something else evolves that ends up loving Gwenpool. But yeah, all those Surfer cards just make such good use of the buffs. Hard to discount. Star rating Ajax. I probably go 3. I mean, I'm seeing the meta Affliction deck a fair bit, and so I put the respect on the name.
I'm gonna say 2. I'm just unimpressed with Ajax. No, look, like I understand when things work out and the play style of the deck being let's fill up one lane with junk stuff on their side, and basically guarantee that we win even with low power stuff on that one lane because we've locked them out. And
Yep.
then we go for a big Affliction at the end game to have a nice huge Ajax in the other lane to ensure that we won there. I get that, and I know that wins games. However, I don't think that makes Ajax the good card because he fits in a very specific, like, I do the thing, I win, which
Right.
I can do the thing and win with,
With Dagger.
what
Honestly, that's what it is. It's Dagger. Like
Right,
you
yeah.
can end on Dagger with that same junk deck and
I was
pop
gonna
off.
say Nomura
Okay.
as an example because like
Interesting.
if you do the one card and the one card and then you go Nomura and then Odin, you can win. If you do the thing, you can win, right? If
Right.
you believe,
Well, yeah,
but
yeah.
that doesn't make her a good card.
Yeah, no, the
So-
good cards are White Widow, Debris,
Correct.
Titania that are taking up that singleton win early in the game, and then you go from there.
Right.
Which
I
before-
think go ahead.
Before we hit Cassie, do you think that we could see like a Hulk Buster that's playable on a full lane?
Oh.
He will like immediately merge.
Yeah. Interesting.
I would love that with how many
So-
options we have to attack board space now. Just as that little like subtle you can get back kind of thing.
So okay, let me meet you halfway.
Okay.
Rather than being able to like pull a Jeff and just play it on top of a lane you shouldn't be able to play it onto.
Yep.
Under normal circumstances. What if it was this like attached to a card in the lane to the right of this?
Okay.
So your right lane is filled. You play this card in the middle lane, and it shifts over and attaches like a Hulkbuster to one of those cards now.
So they could see it coming, like its activate would come on the following turn.
No, I think it could just be on reveal, just like Hulkbuster does it immediately. I think that's fine, but I just think it makes it so like you can't just break the fundamentals of the game and play it onto a filled location and do it that way. You have to play it in. Has to take up a board space first, but then attack kind of like Claw, right? It attacks the lane over, but you need the space to do so. But
I was
you
gonna
still
say, but then we
gain
have
back that space,
we still have like, well, yeah, that's the key is that you get the space back.
right?
Yeah, I don't know. I would like to see something like that, but I guess at the same time, we have Ironheart, we have Claw, we have Mr. Fantastic. So there's technically ways, and Claw is not actually very far off meta. So maybe I just described Claw in like a roundabout way as something I want to play more of.
Claw
I
is
know another card I want to play
underrated.
more of is Cassandra Nova. Like, she is still really solid even after the little nerf. Drop down
Right.
to the 3-0. I think very competent. And especially in the world where Arsham is running around and you just have this like I win this lane button
Mhm.
pop off for what's Arsham's play rate? Polling.
It's gone down a lot. I think it's in the teens.
Polling. All right, so I don't know what this actually is polling for on Snap.fan, but it's saying it's the number 6 most played card, and if you have the Cass against that consistent hits, that's pretty great.
Sure.
And especially if Thanos is what's taking some of the Arsham meta share with his recent change, then Cass is
Yep.
still really good.
So, what are you giving her as a rating?
She's 5, right? She's 5.
So I was leaning towards 5 as well, but I'm wondering if she drops to a 4.5.
My man, you cannot say that the
From-
scoring system is out of 5 and then say, no, Joker, it's out of 10, but I just say 0.5 all the time.
All right, sorry. I mean, then she'd be an 8 out of 10 in that sense, right?
Okay,
Instead of a
yes.
9 out of 10.
Yeah. No, she would be a 9 out of 10.
No, she'd be a 9. I'm dumb. Math is hard. I don't know. Like, so my only reasoning for saying that is because like she's not a 4, but my only reason for saying might not be a 5 is because that one hit of power does make her go from being just a always 3-7 or 3-8 on 3 to now a 3-5, 3-6 typically. But if course if you hit the match of Versham, you're like, oh, nice, I have a 325.
Yeah. Or even there's other ones where like up against Destroy, they really get hurt if some of their cards get set back in power, and that's often stuff that you won't see because they'll just stay away from playing some of those afflicted cards. But she is doing that on the back end, and so as long as her upfront power is like close to other playable cards, I love this. I love it.
Yeah, I think just as far as playability goes, and like finding a reason to not play her. If I'm looking at decks with without a game plan centered around a 3 cost that you can play, like a Rock Slide or like whatever that you need to run into your deck, which by the way, Darkhawk can often play Cassandra Nova anyway, and they do, especially because she works great with the rocks. By that logic, I guess she is a 5 because it's hard pressed to find a reason to not run her because she's just that good and consistent. She's what Gladiator was for a long time.
Yeah.
But now Gladiator has fallen by the wayside because why take the gamble on a 3-8 that might be going up against a bigger card that you can't get rid of, and now just have a consistent 3-6, 3-7.
Or a 3-5 that takes an ability from their curated set of meta cards. That's
correct.
It's like it's Cass or it's Copycat.
We have to remember, like, comparing her to other 3 costs, she's not just a 3-5 or a 3-6 based on her own power. She's a 3-12 essentially because you're taking away power from your opponent. And in the matchups, like you said, Destroy is one example. If you hit a Deadpool and they draw a 1-0 Deadpool, they just bricked, right?
Yep. Or discard on their swarms. There's enough matchups where they wanted to make multiple use of some card stat line, and they're then just not able to. But it's a great segue straight into Copycat, who's the other like plug and play 3-drop of choice. I was surprised that we got the Nocturne nerf and not a Copycat nudge, but I don't know. Like, Iron Lad never got nudged. Maybe Copycat never gets nudged. She's
because
so good.
it's a randomness aspect to it. It's dependent on your opponent's deck. I don't mind her at 3/5. I think Nocturne being a 3/4 is absolutely correct. And
Wow.
I saw this take not too long ago. People, I think it might have been KM Best, saying that, and if it wasn't KM Best, I apologize, KM, for incorrectly
He's
calling you
definitely
out in a
watching.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, he might. I've edited some of his work, and we're on good terms. Anyway, they said that Nocturne, if she was a 3/4 on release, she would be unplayable and not played at
Yeah.
all.
Okay.
And I think sometimes you need to be shown how good something is off rip, like Legion, right? Legion at a 5/8, everyone was like, this card's bad. But then when you play with it, you're like, oh, it's really good. And then it gets dropped to
Yeah.
a 5/7. You're like, oh, this is still good.
Yeah.
I think Nocturne is in that park. Like, she just does so much. She helps you get to locations that are inaccessible. She helps you get rid of locations that are bad for you. She helps you threaten the ability to move and get rid of a limbo in those magic matchups where it's like that mind game of like, okay, am I going to move her now to get rid of this? And maybe you make them overcommit on turn 6 and kind of put too much that exposes them to a Shang-Chi or anything else on turn 7 if you choose not to move it. She's just super flexible in that sense. And giving her the vanilla stat line, I think, is perfectly fine.
And I mean, here's the thing: is it's also the Sandman deck, right? That's what it was.
Right.
You go Jeff into Nocturne, into Captain Marvel, into Sandman, and then you have the flexibility to reposition so freely to lock them out. And the 5
Right.
was doing too much there as well.
And frankly, the 7 on Sandman as well, which they also adjusted to
right.
6.
And that was a deck that, like, it was an archetype that did not exist at all when Nocturne released, and then it got enough pieces all together on top of, like, that Ultron buff that was an enormous buff. People finally made it click, and then they were like, oh yeah, this is like a lot in combination. That's too much.
Yeah, being
So-
able to just play Ultron in a non-Patriot deck and be like, yeah, this is still really good. And not be playing Doctor Doom in that kind of deck is really interesting to me.
Oh yeah. Okay, so Copycat star rating now.
4. Very good. Not
Oh.
something I guarantee.
No
Not something
way.
you put.
You're not going 5?
Hear me out. She's not a card that I say, find me a reason to not run her.
Mhm.
She's the card that I say, find me a reason to run her. Because
Okay.
I'm going to choose Cassandra Nova over her in deck
Really?
construction
Okay.
most of the time because Cassandra Nova is far more consistent. Copycat is extremely good if you can run, and if you can run them both together, by all means do. But I'm going to prioritize cards like our next one we're going to talk about, Marvel Boy, like ones that are integral to your game plan. And if you have that extra slot available to fit her in, yes, you absolutely can. But she's not a card that you say, okay, I'm starting with Shang-Chi and Copycat and then figure out my deck from there. It's not
Okay.
like one of those. That's why I say
Nah.
4.
Copycat's a 5, baby. Snap.fan has her as the number 2 most played card over this time period that they are rating, and I'm totally with
Mhm.
it. Also, I think I'm coming at
Play
this on
rate
like a
does
little
not
bit.
equal star rating, but I
No,
understand.
but okay, so she's in the top 30 of win rate, which is
Does that
really
say
good
it?
as well.
Does that say a lot?
Does it be in the top 30 out of the whole catalog? I feel like yes.
When
I don't
there's
know.
like
I'm also
a
coming
good-
at her from a different like deck building side as I play a ton of Loki and a ton of Arishem that has just tons of space to run cards exactly like this, and so I work
Well,
Copycat in a ton
yeah,
of my
so
decks.
like you've been blinded to like I'm sure when you play non-Arishem decks, you forget and you're like, why can I not play this Copycat on turn 2? What's happening? What's wrong with my Loki? Is my game broken? I'm sure that's
I
happened to you
do
a few
often.
times too.
I'm like, oh man, turn 2. Here comes a 3-drop. No, I'm slow.
Yeah. So you're looking at it through a completely different game, essentially, evaluating her. I'm looking at her from the Everyman's deck. I'm looking at her from the Darkhawk deck. I'm looking at her from playing Destroy or Zoo and like these other decks that have integral synergies that you want to maintain without
won't
just
fit her.
shoehorning. Exactly.
They will not fit her. But I put a lot of value in cards that are just like good cards for the good cards deck. Very flexible. So yeah, she doesn't fit a niche combo, but she's incredible in a wide variety of anything that has space. You can make an argument for her, so that's why I put her so high.
I agree, but that's why I put her at 4 because you don't find a way to fit her into the decks that she technically doesn't belong in. You feel me?
Marvel Boy. I didn't realize what the stats were on Marvel Boy. They're actually cracked.
I'm sure he's top 5 most played at the moment.
So Snap.Fans data is obviously different than Untapped.
Sure.
He's down at number 65 scene play rate.
Oh wow.
So low play rate, but number 1 win rate when drawn, number 2 win rate when in deck. Any drops actually when played. I don't know what the nuance of this stat is, but it's because he's up against like the 6 drops in the
Sure.
1 when played category. So I mean, this stat like is impeccable.
Do you
Number
think
1 when drawn, number 2 when in deck. Oh, Zoo is insane.
so Zoo is very good right now. And this
it's
makes
busted,
me
and it
this-
didn't get touched with any of the recent nerfs.
Yeah, but do you think it's just a matter of like people are refusing to play Killmonger? Because people are refusing.
No, I was trying
What is
actually.
what is
I
Killmonger's
ran.
play rate?
Well, no, but I was running Destroy and I was getting wrecked by Zoo because they kept on tapping the Kyera. They're already teched, and so they're already like taking
if
the
they
hit
draw
to run.
Kyera, sure, but like
Yeah.
I've played Zoo plenty of times, and I'm like, I don't have Kyera. Please don't have Killmonger.
So Killmonger's has a higher play rate than Marvel Boy.
Okay.
At the moment.
Oh man, my pocket meta, I've never seen him. But I guess, well, hold on. Killmonger's interesting because I think so. So you say, what's Killmonger's number and play rate? For a Septa fan?
He's number 16.
Okay, what's Death?
Okay. Because there's like another deck you're thinking about.
No.
Death is number 39.
Okay. Because my thinking is
So
like
it's lower.
I
That means
feel-
that he's being included as a tech card in some extra
Yeah.
decks.
Yeah. But I was trying to see like how much of Destroy is carrying that play rate, which I would imagine is probably roughly 80%.
Yep. So 8.5% is that Destroy deck, and then Killmonger was an extra 5%, which is
Gotcha.
meaningful, but like
Yeah.
about so like 2/3 of his play rate, or around there, you're getting 50% or 2/3 is Destroy, and then extra is the tech card.
I wonder if well, also another thing with the Zoo deck, Enchantress could really love to play against that deck as well.
I think
maybe
Enchantress is-
Sarah Control, that type of deck needs to make a comeback with
yeah,
Enchantress.
and that can run Killmonger as well.
Exactly. Just because like having Blue Marvel, having Khazar, being able to, and like even like if you're running like Red Guardian as well, to hit Marvel Boy, because oftentimes being a 2 himself, he's equal or even less than your other like 1-drops around him.
Yeah, might go
because
Red
they
Guardian is like a favored counter matchup.
yeah. So I don't know. Well, let's say I'm gonna say a 5 on Marvel Boy.
I'm going to say a 5 as well. I thought I might go lower initially, but the more I think about Zoo,
And there's also
He's
Thanos. He's really
fantastic.
Thanos getting Mind Stone to 1 again. He's
Yep.
really good at Thanos. I don't know if you tested
Yep.
this at all.
no, he definitely
Um,
is.
You know where else he's really good? And I said this from the get go that I think he's going to be solid here. I still
Where?
think he's amazing in High Evo.
Yeah, just that engine, the batteries start
Yeah.
stacking with Marvel Boy and with Cyclops, etc., etc.
Yep.
It's
and
punchy.
then Wiccan has been interesting in High Evo. I've been trying it because like you get that leverage of your early 1-drops and stuff like that, and then Marvel
Yeah.
Boy and that engine to be able to like curve out effectively in turns 1, 2, and 3. But if you whiff on that curve out to not benefit with Wiccan, because of course if you curve out perfectly and then you hit Wiccan, you're like, cool, I'm floating huge with Sunspot. I can really leverage this She-Hulk now and really play with
Yeah.
like what Kashi's going to be. And
The
then my
Sunspot
Cyclops goes
loves
crazy.
Wiccan so much. That's so much fun
But-
when you get it to click.
Right. But then inherently, because the way the deck functions, the way High Evo is, if you whiff on the Wiccan thing and he ends up just being a 4/7, you're not too upset because what better deck to whiff on energy than
Yeah.
High Evo
You
that
float it
benefits
for the rest
from
of your
that.
cards. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Though, we had a conversation about this on stream. I'm actually in favor now of just letting High Evo Hulk be normal Hulk. Like, the power creep and snap. Just let the high Evo Hulk be normal Hulk now. Give
Oh,
him more power.
go back to like what he was before. He gained it in deck too.
Well, that should definitely happen. But yeah, I would like to see Hulk stop being a vanilla card. Just have that ability. There's nothing that says High Evo can't mess with cards that
I
already
see
have
what you mean.
abilities.
I see what you mean. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, no, High Evo specifically says cards without abilities gain abilities. So
Well, they could just change that so that he can affect
Sure.
anything you want with a new ability.
yeah, and they could make Galactus a 6/7. Again, they could
Yeah,
do that.
with High Evo in deck, why not?
Honestly, would you hate the idea of Galactus going to a 6/6? Maybe not back to a 6/7 like originally, but like I think the hitting of Goliath a little bit back down to earth of being, I think, a much more balanced card. It's still really good when he's good. I think a 6/6 might be solid because, like, hey, losing to a copycat in a lane is kind of rough.
It's brutal. Yeah. Sorry, big bad.
Losing
Here's
to
the thing.
Hydra Bob, that's the thing right there.
Yep.
Hydra Bob bodying Galactus is funny.
Here's the thing. I just don't like Galactus. So
Sure, that's fine.
I'm
fine.
okay with him staying where he's at. I haven't thought about him too much.
I hit Infinite with him last season. I think Galactus is still very good, and people
Nice.
are just dumb.
It's well, his
Not
play
our
rate
viewers.
is so low.
Not our
that-
viewers, Teddy. Not
Yeah,
our viewers. Our
definitely
viewers
not
are
our
beautiful.
viewers.
I love
Yeah,
them.
they
You're
always
not
see
dumb.
it
You're
coming.
super intelligent. You know when Galactus is coming. You know how to play.
You'd
him.
better, my friends. You would better.
All those other people, the
Yeah.
ones we won't name,
that
they're
we
dumb.
steal cubes from. Exactly. So star rating on Wiccan then?
I think a 3. Honestly, I think he's good, but
2.
like
He's bad.
it's when he works, he's good. I'm only saying a 3 because at the end of the day, of 4/7, I'm not complaining when I get that down.
Interesting. Yeah, the raw stat line, it definitely makes it a little more palatable, but I hate the building decks around him. I feel like he's a little too expensive.
The playing Domino is a mistake. I think people realize playing Quicksilver is a mistake. Because
Yeah.
I've tried both, and then you just hurt your consistency of drawing Wiccan himself.
Exactly.
Now, maybe if you did one or the other, I toyed around with High Evo playing Wiccan and playing Domino, but not playing Quicksilver. It's been okay.
Sure. Because that deck
because-
doesn't have... You would have set up armor on too, but otherwise you don't do much.
Yeah, you have Shocker as a 2-drop, but like you don't
True,
really
but-
always want to play him on 2. He's a card that
Those
you're like,
normally
I'm
cut.
setting up. Yeah. So I think Domino is okay. Man, I just wish there was a way to make him a bit more consistent. But if you made him more consistent in that sense, he's immediately a much better card, and that's not healthy for the game. So
I love him being like a grown-up Psylocke that's just not for the rest of the game. It's just one turn, and then the criteria is only for the previous turn. You spent all energy on previous turn, play him +2 energy for following turn. But
sure, I got you. But that's not as fun. And
no, this is like
when
a
I-
build around mega condition.
when I say 3 stars, by the way, with any card, I'm saying average card. It is on a power level that I find to be fine, not
Sure.
very good, not awful.
No, and when I say 2, I do say he's bad. I don't like
Sure,
him. I
that's
feel
fine.
like
That's
I
fine.
feel like most of the decks.
He's your Ajax for me.
Well, I feel like
works.
most of the decks that he functions well in could do just as well with a different energy cheat, whether it's Wave or Hope. Generally, those two could get slotted in instead, and the deck can do the same thing, maybe even better.
Eddie, isn't this beautiful? This is like I just want to take the time to appreciate how just tasty this instance of like just happening is. Because
Yeah.
for those of you who remember, a certain card that Teddy absolutely loved on release, and I'm sure still has a very special place in his heart, was Pixie. And we had this argument so many times about Pixie, especially in High Evo, because that was the one that was like doing so well with her at the time. And I was like,
Yeah, kind of.
the deck just functions just as well, if not better, without her in the deck. And we had the stats to back that up. And now here we are talking about Wiccan in the exact same light that, hey, the deck can just do it without him. And
Yeah.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I just think, again, people got to figure out how to actually make him work or give him a home where it's like his floor is enough to get by.
Yeah.
I still think if we can get one more piece, like Zabu-esque card, like in current state, Zabu Psylocke.
Yep.
If we get one more of those, a 2-drop that lets us ramp into Wiccan, then just run like 3 1-drops, so you just pretty much almost always have a 1-drop to play early. Then I
Yep.
think we have something.
Yeah, I tried that with Mr. Negative, and I wonder if I just need to divorce Mr. Negative and just have those guys for Wiccan and like somebody else instead.
Yeah, like a Wong maybe. Like you go into
Yeah.
a Wong idea rather than Mr.
Yep.
Negative.
I mean, I
and
had
leverage
Wong in
just
that
on
Mr.
reveals.
Negative deck as
Well,
well.
I'm
It was
sure
getting
you
pretty
did, but
cluttered.
yeah.
It was getting pretty cluttered there.
But then
but it could be something.
without Mr. Negative, you don't have to force things like Iron Man
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Mystique
Yeah.
maybe. You just do better on
Exactly.
reveal stuff. Maybe you just go into the good old classic Zola Black Panther kind of ideas.
Yeah, but if you have the extra energy, you could either pump it out earlier, or you could do something on top. So even though your core is predictable, you have some other thing. Like you could even fit armor in there at that rate.
Yeah.
You could go Zola armor and then protect yourself.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's cool. I think we skipped over Kate.
We
Hawkeye,
absolutely
Kate
did.
Bishop.
So I know you're really high on the Acid Arrow. I
It's
think
the
the
only
Acid
good
Arrow
one.
is really good, but I think the other ones are so mid
Yep.
that gives her. I don't think she's bad. I think she's a 3. I think she's just okay. If they buffed those other 2 arrows,
Yeah.
the grapple one I think is fine. You want something that's like situational that does things on occasion.
That was bad too.
At least it's a 1/3.
Yes, it is a 1/3. It also always breaks my brain to play it. I play it wrong like almost every time.
Because
I'm
it's an inverse Ghost Spider.
Yes.
So that's that. Like if they just made it Ghost Spider because they made the other ones
exactly.
just
All the other
other
ones are
cards.
exact.
Yeah. It should be way more consistent in that sense, or like easier to wrap your head around. But I think she's perfectly fine. You're not really hammering to shove her in every deck that you see. Like you need to
No.
give her a true purpose of why she's in your deck. She's not a Cassandra Nova. She's not a copycat. Hell, I don't even think she's like a Gwenpool or like anything like that, where it's just like, yeah, this could work. I think you need to be like, okay, am I benefiting from something that these arrows do? Am I benefiting from like just the fact that I can play her on 2 and really leverage that? Is there a deck that I have that isn't really super heavy or interested in running a bunch of 3-drops, so I can leverage more 2-drops and in addition to a 1-drop from the arrow on turn 3, or like, however else is spread out? That's what you're gonna have to look at, and I just don't think there's enough homes for her at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd put her mid to low. Like I'll probably go 3 as well, because this Zoo, but she's getting carried by Zoo right now is what's happening, and she's fine
Right.
there. But there's probably a number of other cards that would do just as well. Now I am curious. What do you think of Deep Data Mine Toxin, a second beast effect? Is that gonna
where he gets
bring
the
her up with
+2 tower?
bounce?
Or
Yeah,
+2
instead
power?
of So he gets stronger per card bounced. He doesn't give the beast a discount. He just goes tall himself.
Dude, I love that card.
I do too.
I'm
And
so
if-
excited for these cards, man.
If bounce hits like more consistent, maybe then you're looking at, significantly more utility out of some of those trick arrows, the basic arrow and the grapple arrow. If you're in a bounce move hybrid situation, there could definitely be something there. But that's like a long way out.
Yeah,
So as is, I'm putting Kate probably also at a 3.
yeah, I think that's fair. I do think answer your question, I do think it's probably pretty good with that card in a bounce show. Just
Sure.
giving bounce another way to return stuff that isn't super narrow like Falcon is.
Yeah.
I think is inherently important for the deck to really function. You can still be a version of the deck that runs Falcon, right? But I don't think you need to. With
The value on
Toxin.
Falcon is he's board wide rather than location focused, but
Mhm.
having that other option or combination, really nice.
Yeah, I'm really excited for October. September, which I guess we could probably save this for next week. I guess we could just do a deep dive on September.
Yeah, we can't
and
chew up all
October.
the juicy content yet.
Yeah. I think I'm I'm okay with September. There's a lot of cards I'm like, maybe I'll skip on.
Oh, people are pogging up for these move cards, though.
Right. Move is
Especially,
fun.
it's Madam Web. Madam Web is like insane.
Madam Web is such a funny character to me. She's just like,
Yep.
she's been in like a total of like 7 comics ever.
Yep.
And she had that one thing in like the animated movie for the Spider-Man 90s show that
Yep.
ended on a cliffhanger. With because it got canceled, and there was the episode where Mary Jane disappears and he's screaming no, and then it just ends. That's the show. We're done.
Right.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. See you next time.
I don't even know what I was going on with this. I just think it's just, I know there's things like the Infinite, right, where it's like it's super like niche or like very narrow in terms of like Marvel lore or representation in comics. But for some reason, Madam Web, just the fact that she's so goofy to me, in addition to how awful that movie was, I think that might be carrying it for me.
Yeah,
It's just so funny to see her in the game.
Yep, and now core character. Here we go. Move centric. You're gonna always play this ongoing. You can move one of your other cards away from here each turn. Ho, sign me up. Especially when you got Herc, who could just bounce them straight back. Let's go.
Do we think Aranya is going to be okay?
Yes, just because like Move kind of loves the freedom on setting their trap card and then activating later if they haven't drawn correctly.
Mhm.
But Move is so interesting because it's been so weak for so long. It's also one of those archetypes that I feel like people have not optimized around. And so
For sure.
it seems like the best performing ones have actually been this dagger list that does junk move hybrid stuff. Or it's like a move living tribunal. So I'm waiting for more of these hybrid decks to come up rather than just throw all the move synergies together. And I think that's where it'll ultimately hit a good spot. Like, what control cards can you run? What can you pare down? And Madam Web, Aranya will finally give you the freedom to, like, be able to not rely on only move synergies to get your engine cards really going.
Can I just say that, just to, I guess, give a slight spoiler to my take to next week's episode as far as these cards, I'm going to say Silver Sable is probably the best card of the month.
I love, she looks really good. Bouncing Sable, so toxic. Sign me up.
Just like, yeah, sure, I'll have a guaranteed 1/3 that's above rate. Oh, when I took 2 power away from one of your cards, fantastic.
Waited for it. Watch me. I'm gonna do it again. Grandmaster Beast. Ooh.
Oh, just wait until we get to October. You can Falconer, Beast her, and Toxin her, and just give her. She's
forever.
a disgusting. She's like a 111 at that
Right.
point. You're like, oh, I can just Taskmaster as well.
Exactly.
For sure.
It's like rocket value, but they don't have to play there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's gonna be insane. I think something's gonna she's gonna drop to like a 1-0 and be a 1-2 on average at some point. I just think guaranteed 1-3 already above rate and taking 2 away from your opponent's cards.
It could just go like 1-2 steal 1. You know, then the ability is way weaker, but if you just play her once, it's the same. Then the bounce doesn't get as toxic.
I like the toxic though. Let's give her
I do
a
too,
lower
but
base
second
power.
dinner often balances in the most boring way possible.
That's unfortunate, but you're right.
Yep. All right. We covered a ton of ground.
We did, and for those listening, and if we rambled at any point and we went in circles before going into actual topics, we apologize, but not really.
That's always what we do. Yeah. So if you're new, tune in next time if you want to see more of that. And if you're old, it's good to have you back.
Yeah, of course. And like I said, like always, we love you. We appreciate you. You're the best. Thank you so much for understanding with the hiatus. I got some wonderful feedback on the little mini video I put up, like just quick explanation, like, hey, this is what's going on. We're still alive. Great feedback. People were really happy to see that, as well as I'm sure people said stuff in your Discord. People said stuff to me, sent me messages on Twitter in regards to it. And you guys have been really awesome and understanding, and we cannot be more appreciative.
Yeah, we have the best community. We love you guys. Till next time, don't stop snapping.
Bye, guys.